this haze that takes over them, and it's almost like a blood rage. I am loving this book so far. Hello my darling friends, welcome back to my channel. I'm so excited to be starting this video. I have been having so much fun watching these kinds of videos in the past month. I feel like some of my favorite booktubers have recently done this, like Sarah Caroli and Brianna Kay, and it's just been so fun to watch. I have already had my first 5-star of the year, but I always want to find more 5 stars. Just the books that you get so giddy talking about, that you're so excited that you can't wait to recommend to your friends. That is what I'm looking for. So I figured it'd be fun to start a little reading vlog where we read until I can find one of those. Let me start by telling you about my current read. It is one of the books from my February TBR, and that is The Spanish Love Deception by Elena Armas. When I read the summary for this book, when I was choosing books for my February TBR, it was one of the books I was really excited for just because it sounded like such a fun time. Like, it sounded like the plot of a book that I would want to be made into a movie. Like, it's just right up my alley. And while I've been having so much fun with it, it's not giving me 5 stars, but I still want to talk about it because it's the first book we're going to be finishing together in this video. The premise of this story is we have our female main character who is from Spain. She is going to go home for her sister's wedding. Her sister is marrying the brother of her ex, and her ex is now engaged. And so she does not want to show up to this wedding and just have everyone be like, oh, poor you, oh, you still haven't moved on or anything like that, because her family says what they are thinking, as most Spanish families do. I can say that coming from one. And she just doesn't want to hear it, so she wants to find somebody to bring to this wedding. Immediately from the first page, we are thrust right into the most unlikely person offering to be her date. Literally, the first line says, "I'll be your date to the wedding." We are thrust right into this conversation that she's having with her best friend, and it's not private like she thought it was, because essentially her work arch nemesis, whose name is Aaron Blackford, he is tall, he is broody, he never smiles and doesn't find her funny, offers to be her date for the wedding, and she's just like, ew, no. And as we're reading this book, we get multiple interactions of the two of them together, essentially, and him trying to convince her why she should let him be her date. Kind of has you questioning why he's pushing so hard for that. But I do like a fake dating trope. I generally have a fun time with it. What I like about this book right now is honestly our broody MMC. I don't know why, but I'm liking him. I'm liking the depth that this author has given to him. I'm not getting 5-star feelings. I think that some of it is a little bit cheesy in the way that like a romance can be. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's not really in line with what a 5-star romance would be for me. However, I'm still having a good time, and who knows, maybe something could happen that could shock me at the end of this and make me love it. I don't think so. But also then this video would be over. So yeah, it's actually quite a long book. It's 437 pages, which I feel like for a romance is quite long, but I only have about 130 pages left, and I have been flying through this book. Like, I feel like it's very bingeable. It would be really good to take on vacation with you. So I do feel like I'm going to finish it today. So I will update you guys when I am done with this one. See if this is a 5-star, and if not, what we're going to move on to. I quite literally never film in here because the lighting is absolutely horrible. But today we're gonna roll with it because my kids are out there doing a project and I don't want to make them have to be quiet for me to film. Anyways, it is time for a little book update because I did end up finishing The Spanish Love Deception by Elena Armas. I actually am kind of a little bit disappointed because I felt like the last 100 pages I didn't love, and in fact, as I was moving towards the ending of this book, it kind of was reminding me of other parts of the book that I wished were different. So that was a little bit of a bummer. I think something that this book did really well was the banter between our female main character and our male main character. But I do feel like as we got towards the end, for me, it got just a little more cringy than I like my romance books personally. I do feel like in the romance genre, sometimes it's hard not to have a little bit of it. But for me, it just like wasn't my cup of tea, specifically towards the end, like when our two characters ended up getting together. I also just have to mention that repeated nicknames for me are really an ick. I really struggle with that. And with this one, it was like every sentence he was ending with baby, and I was just like, no, let's not do that. Maybe that's just me. I did like our male main character. I felt like he was probably my favorite part of this. I liked the whole premise of it. I just felt like because it was so long, there was more areas for this to go wrong, if that makes sense. Like, I feel like if a romance book is gonna be long, it's almost more difficult for me to love it and for a lot of people to love it because there's more opportunities for it to be cringy or for just you to think that there's certain things that could have been trimmed out of it, and that's really how I felt. So I think I'm gonna land on like a 3-star. I still had a good time with it, and I don't know that I would discourage anyone from reading it. It could be a fun vacation read, but it's also a book that I'll probably never think about again. I don't think I'll ever reread it either. There's just so many other romance books that I liked a lot more. I do have the sequel to this book, and I'm kind of torn on whether or not I would even want to read it at this point. So this book was not a 5-star, so this video continues. I already started the next book that I'm going to be talking about in this video, and I think I have chocolate almond in my teeth, by the way. We're just gonna ignore that. Anyways, I already started the next book that is gonna be part of this video, and that is Paladin's Grace by T. Kingfisher. This is on my February TBR, but the reason why I picked it is because there are a few things that made me think this could be a good contender for a 5-star read. Firstly, I recently read a 5-star book that had kind of a knight as part of this fantasy story, and I really liked that. And so immediately when I saw this book, I'm like, I think I'm in just like my medieval knight era. And also this fantasy is supposed to blend mystery as well. Like our main characters get wrapped up into this conspiracy mystery where there's someone unaliving people. It makes me think of another series where that was happening, the Belladonna series by Adeline Grace. Obviously that's a little bit different as far as genre. That one's much more almost like a gothic fantasy, whereas this is kind of dark, cozy fantasy, if that makes sense. And I also really just think that this cover is so stunning. Not that that has anything to do with a 5-star, but I've been excited to get into this book since I've had it for a few months. Essentially, the premise of this story is we have, essentially from the summary, all we pretty much know is that we have our male main character who used to be a paladin, and for some reason he is retired. And he's kind of living a more docile existence. And then we have our female main character who is a perfumer, and something happens where he steps in to save her, and then going on from there, the plot just thickens as they end up getting wrapped into this mystery. I'm currently about 100 pages into this book, and just to expound upon that, what I really like so far is the magic system in the fantasy world that's in here. As I started reading, getting more information, the reason why our male main character Stephen is retired is because in this world we have different gods and then people who swear to these gods, and he has sworn to the Saint of Steel. And from the first page, even from the first line, we are just thrust right into the story with the fact that his god has died, and for some reason, because this god has died, which nobody even knew that a god could die, the people who are sworn to him or god touched have really been negatively impacted. So for example, Stephen and his fellow paladins, which they were also known as berserkers, they have this specific thing that happens to them that I can't remember what it's called in the story right now. It's going to come to me later. But essentially there's this haze that takes over them, and it's almost like a blood rage where they don't know what they're doing, but they're just taken over and will hurt anybody around them. And so because of that, either that has happened or there are some people who are affected in the opposite way where they end up unaliving themselves. So Stephen and the 7 paladins that are left of this god have found refuge in this other god's sanctuary called the White Rat. And I love that part of the story. Like, I think that that premise is so interesting, that we have all these different gods and all these different types of people who swear to them. Like, it isn't always soldiers that swear to a god. There can be historians, there are people who dedicate their lives in service of their fellow man. And it's really, 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 the one thing I will say, obviously I knew this was a cozy fantasy going into it. I am almost wishing we could lean more into that dark, gritty, like a god has just died, we have this like blood rage that takes over, and I almost want to stay in that grittiness and that darkness. And obviously this is taking more of a cozy vibe, which I'm not disliking, but I think just particularly my taste, I like when we stay in that more intense side of things. But I do think it's very interesting, this balance of a dark fantasy that's also cozy, and we also have funny moments between our characters. And I'm honestly just really excited to continue to read this story and see what I think about it. Again, I'm on page 100. I feel like it's entertaining. I'm sucked into the story. I do feel like they are keeping you going because they're so short, and it's told in third person, and then it switches between Steven and Grace, our main character. I don't know if it's giving me 5-star feelings. Obviously things could change, and part of me is just kind of like, I can't help but think that if the coziness was taken out of this story, like this world is like a 5-star world for me. So that's kind of like a weird feeling to be having, but I'm enjoying myself, and who knows, like it might all come together and it could be a 5-star. I can't say that it won't be yet, but yeah, I'm intrigued and I'm really, really interested. And I can't wait to see where it takes us. Okay, so I am back with a little reading update for you guys. I finished Paladin's Grace. I finished it yesterday, and I already started my next book, which obviously means I did not rate this 5 stars. However, I had an absolutely amazing time reading this book. I feel like what I loved about it, which I kind of already mentioned, but is just, again, like the magic system, the way that the story is set up. Really, I guess I should say I loved this world. I think it was so fascinating that we have these different gods and then these different types of people that dedicate themselves to these gods. I also really loved the concept of using the lore of like a berserker as an MMC's power, if that makes sense. Like, I've never read a book where that was the case, and I loved that. I love like this idea of having our MMC be this powerful warrior and they get taken over by this battle haze. I thought that that was so cool. And again, I was just fascinated with even all the other gods and the types of people that serve them. I really liked that. It really has made me more intrigued to continue in this series and also to read more from T. Kingfisher. I really liked that other than the mystery that we had in this book of our female main character being wrongfully accused of poisoning someone, I also like that there is an overarching mystery that was mentioned and that did not get solved in this book. It was eerie and creepy and just exciting to me. Like, I really do want to figure out what's happening with that. I think that's a really good way and very smart of the author as well to get you to continue in the series. This book was just an interesting kind of balance of somewhat cozier elements, comedic elements, and then also this darker storyline that was happening. It was a little bit gory at times, a little bit gritty, and then again we have more of a cozy romance between our two characters. The one thing I will say is that I did not think that this book needed the spice. I didn't feel like it necessarily lent to the story anymore. I felt like it actually would have been better served to just let the yearning take the front center stage. I just felt like some of the language that was used was kind of taking away from that. I don't know how else to explain it. Like, I felt like some of the humor and just some of the language was more so, I don't know, I guess just like spicier than it needed to be, in my opinion, and for this story. But I still really enjoyed the actual storyline. I enjoyed the plot. I liked the characters. I can't wait to see these characters again moving forward, and I'm intrigued to see who the next book is about. You can't really read them out of order, I don't think, but they are going to be about 2 different characters. So really excited to continue on in that. I ended up rating this 4.25 stars, so I'm intrigued and I definitely will be continuing in this series. You guys already saw the next book that I picked up, which is Arcana Academy, and my thought process behind this was I really like very unique magic systems. If you can't already tell by the way I spoke about Paladin's Grace. Specifically in this one, the magic system has to do with inking tarot, and the last series that I read with tarot cards, the only other series that I read about that has a fantasy/magic system that is based off of specific cards and like what those cards give you as far as power, as far as their use, and that was the Shepherd King series, which is One Dark Window and Two Twisted Crowns. I loved that series. I rated both of those 5 stars, and so it really made me excited to read this book. I will say academy settings don't always work for me. Sometimes they feel a little bit juvenile for me. However, because I have heard really good things about this book, so I've been excited to pick it up, and it was just about time, honestly. And I will say, I am 100 pages into this, and so far, I am loving it. And what's intriguing to me and different about this book versus the Shepherd King series is that in the Shepherd King series, we just have cards. They're already made. They can't be replicated. There's only a certain amount of them, whereas in this series, we have the ability to ink more cards. So to be able to provide yourself more uses of these specific magic, it's very interesting. The deck is a lot bigger as well, and these specific cards, like I said, do different things, which is so fascinating to me. I just love, again, like a really unique magic system, and you can tell that Elise Kova, she's just very, very intelligent with the way that she has crafted this magic system, which I'm really enjoying. This book also has like a micro trope in it, which I really enjoy reading, and that's when one of our, either a female main character or a male main character is in a prison, and then the other one for some reason comes and breaks them out, whether that's deeper into their relationship or at the very, very beginning. Think of Throne of Glass, where we have Selena that is in a prison at the very beginning, and then we have one of our MMCs who comes and breaks her out for his own, gain. And that's kind of what's happening here, is that we have our female main character who is put into prison, but specifically in this one, she believes she's been put there because of this specific prince, the second in line to the throne, Prince Kalis, and he is the one that is coming because he wants to use her. And I really liked the way it was introduced. I like the feeling that I'm getting from this writing, and I have so many questions in a good way, not because the writing is leaving me with a lot of questions, but I want to know more about her past and things that the author is alluding towards. I want to know more about her family relationships, where this sister is that she can't find. And I'm also intrigued to see what this academy setting is going to be like, because it's very, very cutthroat so far, and I'm excited to see how it continues. We have this little opening scene. In order to get into this academy, you have to pass through this test where you use this chalice, and it kind of reminded me of the Triwizard Tournament in Harry Potter, where they have the cup that they put their name in and yada yada, but it just, I don't know, reminded me of that. Anyway, again, we're just at the very beginning of her academy experience so far. Again, I know it's cutthroat. They're only going to accept, I want to say 18 of the 25 students that are there. And then because she's technically an escapee from this prison, that just adds another element to it. So I'm really excited to continue reading this and see if this could potentially be our 5-star. I feel like with the last few books, it's taken me 1 to 2 days to read, and I have a couch coming tomorrow that I'm really excited about that is going to probably take me a bit to assemble, and so I don't know if that's going to impact my reading, or maybe what I'll do is just use some Spotify hours to listen to the audiobook while I'm building this couch and see. But I am so excited about that little tangent, because I feel like ever since we moved into this apartment, we've had to just try to arrange our furniture in a way that will best fit this space, and we haven't even been able to use one part of our couch because our living room is smaller. So right now we have 2 pieces, just making it way smaller, and it's just not as comfortable as I would like it to be, especially for a family of 4 in a smaller place. And so I'm excited because we've got some extra pieces coming from a company called Home Reserve, and it's one of my favorite couch companies and they're such an amazing company, by the way, if you're in the market for a couch, because every single piece of fabric comes out and is able to be washed, which if you have dogs or kids, I have both of those, it's just absolutely perfect. But yeah, I'm so excited for that. I'm excited to have a new reading spot to just lay down and cuddle up on the couch with a book So hopefully my next update, we will be on the new couch. I think that I've figured out the problem that I'm having with this book. I'm about 250 pages in, which is a little bit less than halfway. And let me first go over, I guess, what I'm really enjoying. I'm still enjoying learning more facets of this tarot card magic system. It's very interesting also learning more about the politics of this world and just like the different classes and things of the people in there. I think for me, a little bit of the pacing is what's making me struggle with this book. We have an academy setting, but we don't have any type of classes or anything starting until probably about page 230, so we're halfway into the book. What's interesting for me is that the author decided to introduce an element into the story that I feel like might have been better served maybe 3/4 of the way through the story versus, in the very beginning of the second quarter of this book. And what I mean by that is we are already in the second quarter of this book reuniting our female main character with her friends from before she was in prison. She has this opportunity to leave the academy, and Prince Kalis does not know this. She is going with this person that she meets, and she's having this reunion that I feel like would have been better served towards the end, and it took up precious chapters that I feel like would have been served better towards the end of the book, like leave me hanging on for this reunion later. And where it was placed in the way that she was introduced to this other male character who ends up helping her escape to go meet these friends for a little bit, it lost me, and I think it slowed the momentum down from where we were as far as her being introduced into this academy and having this really brutal first experience with this academy, with that experience she has with the chalice and having to give up one of her futures in order to enter into this academy, which is really interesting. And again, it really reminded me of like the Triwizard Tournament entry, but I think that's what made me struggle. It really slowed the pace down of this book, and frankly, I was not caring as much for that part of the story, and I literally found myself as I was reading through a chapter skipping pages to just see, oh my goodness, how many more pages do I have left in this before we can move back to the actual academy setting of this story. And yeah, it's really interesting because generally I like a world that's expanded. I like a multi-layered plot, but in this instance, I was kind of wishing that it was set up just a little bit differently. I ended up getting to the point where I was really just getting a little bit bored, and so I was just like, you know what, I want to put this book down for a little bit and maybe try something else, because that already in and of itself was making me realize that this wasn't going to be a 5-star because of the way that this is setting up. However, I still am actively reading this book, because that happened probably about 30 pages ago where I set the book down in order to read another book, and then I still have been continuing on. I felt like I just needed a genre change. Maybe that's what it was. Obviously, we've already had a romance and we've had 2 fantasies, albeit different fantasies, and I think my problem lately, if I'm really honest with myself, looking back, I literally sat down and analyzed this. I get my least amount of 5 stars from fantasy lately, and I don't feel like it's me falling out of love with the genre, because I do still love a fantasy world. I love the elements. I especially love the yearning that can be found in a romantic fantasy. But I think it's just taking a lot more, because I've read so many of them. It takes a really, really specific kind of one. Like, it has to tick certain elements for me in order for me to rate it highly. And I tend to get either bored easily or just I get the eek. I get the ick very easily, which sucks because, again, it's like probably my favorite genre. I enjoy reading it so much, but I'm just really, really struggling with the genre in and of itself right now. And I'm trying to do better at not forcing myself to read a book. This is not a DNF for me at all. In fact, again, I'm still actively reading this book. It just made me realize like I might need another book to help me get the momentum back into this specific book. And sometimes that helps. Like, I'll pick up another book and I'll start reading it and I'll read like 100 pages of it and I'm enjoying that other book, and then I'll be like, okay, I'm ready to jump back into the previous book that I was in, especially because this book is quite long. Obviously it's a fantasy, and it doesn't surprise me that the first installment is like over 550 pages. That being said, I was really trying to decide which book I was going to pick up next. I feel like I was in for potentially a fiction type book, a literary fiction type book, something maybe with some trauma to really get me to have some stakes in this story. And so I ended up looking at 2 different books, and I wanted to mention both of them, just even though I obviously have already picked and started one of these books. But the first one I was really considering is The Favorites by Lane Fargo, because I started some of the Olympic training. I love to watch figure skating, and it was a goal of mine this year to not miss any of the figure skating, the ice dancing, any of that. And I just get really excited, and there's nothing like the country pride that you have while watching the Olympics. I am one of those people that I watch it and I almost feel emotional because I'm like, look at these incredible people just like living their dreams and doing this for their country. I feel like I'm a little bit of an empath in that way, where I'm putting myself in their perspective of just like, wow, like this is it, this is your moment. And then when they don't do as well as they want to do, like my heart breaks for them, because I know like how much pressure this has to be. Well, I can't really know, but I can almost feel it. I know that this book is so well loved as well, and for me, I'm like, what better time to read The Favorites than either during or right after the Winter Olympics, because I'm riding that high. Like, I honestly, it made me want to go back and read From Lukov with Love by Mariana Zapata, because first of all, I love her books, but that's also about like a figure skating team that ends up going to the Olympics, and I've just been thinking about that book a lot recently. So I was thinking about picking this book up, and then for some reason, like I really want to pick this book up, and I know it'll probably be maybe the next book I read, if not the next one, then the one after that. But for some reason, this other book was really calling to me, and I think it's a mixture of the size of the book, but also there are just times, I feel like for me this happens, you'll have to tell me if this happens for you as well, where certain books will literally just stare at me from my shelf. Like, they seriously make eye contact with me and they're like, it's time, like this is your time to read this book. And this specific book was doing that, and I wasn't planning on reading it until end of March or early April, because it is my April book club pick for the local book club that I do with my friends here, and I just had to pick it up. And that is The Bright Years by Sarah DeMoff. Literary fiction is a new genre for me. I started picking it up last year, and I was pleasantly surprised at how connected I can feel to a story in this genre. It's a specific feeling that I don't necessarily feel in fantasy, and I get it because like this is based in real life. This is based in real life experiences, and I feel like I've felt so seen in so many moments in so many different literary fiction books in ways that I haven't as often in romance and fantasy. I would say in romance, when it's more like fiction leaning, I also feel that way, but I feel that a lot when I read literary fiction. And it's tough because I want to continue to say that fantasy is my favorite genre, and I think that it is, but literary fiction hits me in a way that fantasy could almost never, except for maybe like Kingdom of Ash, because that one I did feel. But yeah, so I ended up picking up The Bright Years, and I don't know if you guys can already tell, I'm going to show you the way that I have been annotating the first 100 pages of this book is crazy, because Sarah DeMoff, the way that she writes is so beautiful, and I just feel so connected to it, even though I can't necessarily relate to these characters' specific storylines, but certain ways that they feel I have felt before. And so it's really interesting. I think it's a mark of a great author that can help you relate to these characters who are in totally different situations, but they feel some of the same feelings that you do. There's just like, it's just so incredible and quotable, and I feel like I loved it even from the dedication page. It says, "For daughters and sons, parents of all kind, and the discomforted." And I'm like, okay, well, I'm a daughter, I'm also a parent, and that is also, I feel like, helping me connect to this book, because we just have different familial elements. We have this story that is told from the perspective of a mother who is leaving an abusive relationship, and we also have this story of patterns being repeated by children that their parents did, even though they're trying so hard to not become. And then also we just have a lot of descriptions of how a mother just feels so connected to their child, and how their child kind of ends up replacing the number one spot in their life that their spouse used to be in. There's just some type of connection between a mother and a child that is indescribable unless you experience it. But there's just so many, like even the quote at the beginning of this book by Louise Erdrich, I don't know how to say that, but it says, "Sorrow eats time, be patient, time eats sorrow." And that is describing so much already of this book. Like we have different sad, negative feelings that are experienced and explored by different characters, whether it's grief, whether it's addiction, whether it's, loss of a child, loss of a relationship. And it's just so beautiful. Like I can't, there's so many things in here that I want to share with you guys already, and I'm only about 100 pages in. I'm trying to find this specific one, for example, about marriage, that I'm like, okay, every married person can kind of relate to this a little bit, whether or not you have a negative or positive marriage. Like, that's not what it's about. It's about these specific feelings that you can still understand even as someone that's married or as a parent. She does it with both. And I don't even know if any of this is making sense. I'm honestly just rambling because I am loving this book so much, even though it is traumatic. It is sad. It's just really, really beautiful. I'm trying to find it here. I think it might be the one. Much of marriage is some permutation of mismatched desires, like a three-legged race, and desires become indistinguishable. I can't tell if I want to have a baby or I want to make Ryan happy, or pay penance, but if perfect understanding of our own motives were a prerequisite for action, the world would be motionless. But just the way that she describes, again, just the relationships and the feelings in this book, I really, really connect with. I really love. It's making me feel so much for these characters. I'm on page 119, and this is a relatively short book. I want to say it's not even 300 pages. Let me see here. Yeah, it's 271 pages, which is so short. I think it might be one of the shortest books on my TBR, but the way that she's able to pack so much into this is just incredible. I'm loving it so far, and dare I say, I think I'm getting 5-star feelings, which we'll see how this book continues to see if this is the book to end this vlog and just will be my 5-star of the vlog. I think when I pull my annotation, supplies out, I tend to think, okay, this is going to be a book that I rate really highly. And I always love just matching the annotations to this book. I don't know if you can tell, but I picked out like pinks and yellows and oranges and a little bit of green, and then you can kind of see that in the side here. Hopefully you can see that. Maybe you can't. I'll try to put up a picture if I feel like in post it's not really showing. But yeah, I don't know. I'm really loving this book, and it makes me excited because this is her debut novel, which is crazy to me. Someone who's never written a book before can write this amazing. But she has another book coming out this year, and if this book continues to go the way that I think it's going to go, and if it ends up being a 5-star, then that will be a book that I will definitely be at Barnes & Noble the day that it comes out, because I'm loving it. And I'm also just getting so excited to already discuss this book in book club, and I haven't even finished it. So, safe to say, things are going well. This is just an example of just like the aha moments you can have, or I have, while I read literary fiction. It's just really interesting. I feel like this genre really makes you think and have certain realizations. But we're going back in one of our characters' past memories where she had a friend who just, when she was a child, decided that she didn't want to be her friend anymore and tells her to leave her alone and everything. And she goes crying to her mom, and her mom basically takes her outside and is talking to her. And she basically says, "I'm not saying not to cry about Lisa. I'm saying there will be other Lisas. You have parents, friends. Someday you'll have lovers and maybe even kids. It's not that you don't need anyone, just that you don't need everyone." And that's what I'm talking about. I think that's what I love about literary fiction, is it's almost like therapy when you're reading these fiction books that really just teach you about, or just discuss relationships, or just discuss different feelings that you can have. And while these characters are working through their own trauma, and even though they're having different life experiences than you are, I feel like you as the reader can still take so much from it. And I'm just like, okay, yes, of course, like this is a concept that I've thought about it a lot, but I've never put it to words quite like this, and now I feel like it's a concept that I understand even further just because I've read Sarah DeMoff's words about this subject. Does that make sense? Like, it's just, I don't know, it's just so good. I am loving this book so far. that's gonna bring us to the end of today's video because we have found our 5-star. I absolutely loved this book. I felt like it just continued to take this momentum throughout it of just beautiful lyrical writing and also just deep feelings portrayed and emotions portrayed in the writing that I absolutely loved. I loved being in these characters' heads, and I just loved Sarah DeMoff's writing in this. I could picture everything so much in my mind. I felt like I was in these characters' heads. I felt like I was these characters, honestly, in general, going through this with them. And I just found so many things in this to be so relatable. And I feel like it's going to be one of those books I talk about all year long, just remembering this as one of my favorite books of the year because it was so good. And to be able to pack that into a story that I don't even think it's 300 pages. Yeah, it's just around the 270 page mark. It's just incredible. It really is, and it really makes me excited to see where this author goes just with her writing career because this is her debut novel. It was just so good, and it's everything that I want in a literary fiction. I also really liked that the ending was so satisfying and honestly happy, which I appreciate because a lot of times in literary fiction you will get a satisfying ending, but it's not necessarily a happy one. And with all of the trauma that our characters went through in this book, I was really satisfied with the way that this book ended. I feel like there were just a lot of great lessons in this as well about just like putting your family first. And honestly too, the responsibility that falls on each one of us to move past our childhood traumas, to do that work, because I know it's not easy, but it is our responsibility to work through that, to be able to have the best life that we can and to be the best family members, the best parents, the best siblings, just the best support systems for the people around us. So I absolutely loved this book. Like, I feel like I learned so much from it. I honestly think that it's quite a good ratio to have a 5-star in 4 books. Like, if I had 1 in 4 books throughout the year be a 5-star, I would consider that a really great reading year. And also I'm really excited because out of this video I got a new series to look forward to. Like, I'm really excited to continue on in this series. I know there's 4 books in this series. I think it's completed. Don't quote me on that, but I'm really excited to continue in this and just like continue in the mystery that was set up in this story and just with these characters in this world that I really liked. So yeah, overall I would call this a very successful video. If you guys stuck around for the ending, thank you so much for being here. Please leave me either like a hand emoji or a light bulb emoji to go with the 5-star that I found in this video. And if you haven't read this book, I really highly recommend it. If you liked this video, please consider staying a while. I would love to have you here as part of my community. And I'm so excited to just continue reading, continue posting videos and sharing those with you guys. But that is all for today, and I will see you guys in my next video.